Here we go. So I was asked to give my testimony a couple weeks ago, and time kind of like crept up on me. But in the process, usually you write it down and like you have a time frame. But God told me not to write it down. So good luck, guys. I don't know what I'm going to say. I have no clue what I'm going to share. I feel like I'm going to share stories that I have never shared before, because since my first testimony, I have a lot more, because we all have more than one testimony. So normally when I walk into a room, I used to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Felecia and I'm an addict. But today, I get to walk into a room or answer the phone. Hi, this is Felecia, a realtor. And so God has really changed my life. And I'm really excited to share with you guys that, I don't know what I'm sharing with you guys. So, but I'm really excited that I can share it. So I just want to pray real quick. So God speaks through me and He uses me for this. So, dear Lord God, I thank you for allowing me to do this. Speak through me, Lord. Give me the courage, help my voice, and just use me. And bring whoever needs to hear this testimony that's going to help them, either to watch the video or you brought them here tonight, Lord. Just help me to help others so that they don't maybe have to go through what I went through. And I thank you for everything. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. I'll try not to cry. I didn't wear waterproof mascara either. So, I have been clean for 9 years. My clean date is March 9th, 2012. That is not the last time I used. It is the first, thank you. It is my very first clean drug screen. And I like to say, I wanted my clean date to be when I had no drugs in my system. And I was like a fresh start and it's pure, and that sounds so like pretty. But it was really because I was too high. I have no clue when I quit using. I have no clue. I went from stealing weed to, not stealing weed. I stole like heroin. I was forced to smoke weed. I was pregnant. I think I was still stealing like heroin because the drug dealer lived with me. And so it's a very shady time in my life that I don't have any dates. Like, I don't remember any of it. I just remember some things that happened, but I don't even know the timeline. It could have been a few days, it could have been a few weeks. I was just high a lot, so I don't know. But so I say this because I originally shared my testimony, and I talk about how, I was always different. We're kind of born addicts. Our brains are just different. We don't kind of relate to everyone the same. And then I went through like how God just got me clean. And so my drug of choice was actually anything that got me high. I went from Oxycontin to heroin because it was easier to get. I learned how to shoot up crack. I smoked weed for 5 years, even before the hard drugs, every day, all day long. I hated drinking, but I could drink you under the table. I just did anything so I didn't have to feel whatever pain I was hiding, or just to have fun. And I have no clue why. I could have different reasons. Like you get high or you drunk because you're sad, because you're happy. Like any excuse you just use. You have these hurts. It was a great day. You ran into someone. You just want to celebrate. Any excuse. We just wanted to just do it. So I am blessed that I am the only one out of anyone that I ever got high with in my circle that is alive and clean. So there are maybe 2 that are alive, but they're not clean. So I thank God all the time for that, because He chose me to get this far, and I don't take that lightly. So let's see, my first boyfriend was the father of my first child, and he was kind of abusive. Our first fight, he threw a beer bottle at my head, and then he apologized. And then I moved to Florida, and then I moved back, and then I got pregnant. And long story short, at some point I started smoking weed. I was clean at this time. I didn't do drugs. And then he started drinking again, so I decided to leave him. It was also because he was trying to control how much weed I smoked. And so that was just an excuse to leave. So I left him for another guy, which was actually my first friend because I was in Michigan at this time. And I was really good friends with his sister, so I moved in with them, which was terrible. Because I could smoke as much weed as I wanted, but they hid the fact that their mom was addicted to Vicodins and abused it. I just knew she was really sick. And we're in the study. There was a lot of demons in that house. And I remember we lived there, and I would wake up with like this bruise on my hand, on my arm, and then long story short, after I moved out, that disappeared. And I could go on forever for that, but that's not the point of the story. So I finally got my own place. Me and my daughter, she is probably about a year now. I chose to stay in Michigan because I moved back to Florida, but moved back to Michigan for this guy, the friend, the one I moved in with. And he is actually the father of 2 of my children. And but before I officially got with him, because even though we hung out, he didn't want to be with me. But I like begged him to be with me, like all these things. We would hang out. I would buy weed from him. We would hang out. He was like a friend, but he was chasing this other girl. And then so I got over him, and I'm doing good. And then he calls me, and now he wants to hang out. So, long story short, that's why I have 2 kids by him. And then, let's see. So in that process of being with him, I left him. I went to a shelter because he was just always getting high. I had to start robbing him for money and food. Like, this is the time of my life. I didn't have Jesus at all. We actually had no food in the house. I remember fighting over bouillon cubes and ketchup packets. And I remember he would go to work and I would stay home with my kids. And as long as I had weed, I was good. If he didn't leave me weed, it would be a fight until he brought me weed, because I was just high for these 5 years. And so my daughter was born with THC in her system, and so CPS was called. And what a blessing that was. This lady was an angel. So in that town, she was the scariest CPS worker. People are scared of her. They hide from her because she will take your children in a heartbeat. But she helped me. She helped me go into a shelter. She helped me get my warrants taken care of in the process of having warrants for things that I couldn't take care of in court because I was high. And so I went to a shelter. It's getting my life on track. I found a job, and I found an apartment on my own. But in the process of leaving him and getting to the shelter, I met another guy. And so he had a motorcycle, and he was cool, and I don't know. So in the process, I'm at the shelter. He needs money for a car, and I give him money for a car because I had it, because I'm in a shelter, and I'm really good at saving money. So I had plenty, even though I'm in a shelter, and I give him. So he buys this car. I also don't know that he is on heroin at the time. I knew nothing about hard drugs at this point. I've only done weed and I guess drink at this time. I've never tried hard drugs. So I'm at the shelter. I give him money. He can't even buy me a pack of cigarettes and bring him to the shelter with the card on him. So, but that's okay, because I don't care. I don't stop talking to him. And I get the job. I find the apartment on my own. I start school. And I have my kids. We're out of the shelter. And I get pregnant. And so, with his kid. And so I don't know why I gave him a key to my house, and he ends up being like crazy, like my house is never clean enough, like all these things. And so like red flags, and maybe because I'm sober at this time from weed, that I kind of notice these things, and I call my mom in desperation and my sister. And I knew I wanted an abortion. So this will be my second abortion in my life. And I kind of was chickening out in the parking lot. I didn't want it, but I didn't want to be attached to this guy because of this, because he was crazy for some reason. Turns out he was crazy because of heroin. And so I had the abortion, and when you have an abortion, they give you Vicodin. And I swear it said like 2 to 4 hours or 4 to 6 hours or as needed. So I took it as needed. So within a week, I was pretty addicted. And so at my new job that I just started, I met the cool guy that everyone liked. So you see there's my new issue is not drugs, it's guys. And so I didn't realize this until I watched my testimony that I did 6 years ago last year. I realized I had this problem, and I'm like rolling my eyes at each other, at myself, not each other. But so this guy, we hang out, he needs Vicodin, I can get him Vicodin. So I got him Vicodin, he shared it. So then he introduces me to Oxycontin, which I didn't even realize that you could get addicted to pills like that until I had withdrawals. And then I told myself, I'm never gonna have that withdrawal feeling ever again in my life. I made sure I had enough money every day to get high. It wasn't to quit, it was so I can get high. That's how sick it was. And so I just keep going. I am, what do they call it? I'm an addict, but I can still go on with life, you know? So in this process of us together, he gets evicted from his place, so he comes moves in with me. I don't date guys, they just move in with me. So we just moved in. It was great. And I look back, and I always said he was the good boyfriend, you know, because he didn't beat me. He was always good. We always had fun. It wasn't like we never fought. The only thing we fought about is maybe the size of the half of the pill we had to split, and if we decorated the house. Like, it was a good relationship is what I thought. Only because of how I could compare it with others and what I've known. So, long story short, I get evicted. God is still working in my life. So we get evicted from this apartment that I worked so hard to get from the shelter. And like the sheriffs come. I'm in Detroit working because I'm a medical assistant because I went to school for that in this whole time of being in the shelter and getting my own place. And so I had to come home from Detroit because my kids are in this apartment with my boyfriend, and the sheriffs are taking everything out. But I have amazing friends that I've met in the shelter, and they all come to my rescue, and they guard my stuff till we can get a storage unit. So also in the shelter, I got on a list for Section 8, which you can't get if you had stable housing. And so I wouldn't have gotten it. And so it was been a year. And so in that week span of being homeless in a hotel, I become available on this list. So even in all this stuff, and I wasn't faithful to God, He was faithful to me and always working. So his mom buys a trailer, and I pay her rent, the Section 8. So I'm guaranteed a place. And he dies one night. In his sleep, you wake up and it turns out he had HIV, which I knew because I found the pills, I read it, I did the research, I knew what they were for, but since he said they were for something else, I believed him. And this whole time, God saved me from having AIDS. I don't have AIDS. I've gotten tested several times. God saved me from that. It's a miracle. So he dies. That's when I get hooked on heroin. I get back with the guy that, the crazy guy that I had the abortion from. I get back with him because he needs a ride to Detroit to get heroin. So I go ride with him. And he didn't let me shoot it up at first. But after a week, somebody else did it for me. So then, within 6 months of me trying heroin, I lost my kids. We got pulled over. They went to the foster care system. My oldest daughter went to her dad's house. And life was over. I was in jail. And my family knew my secret. They were really upset. But they didn't give up on me. So, I get out of jail. And I got a new job. I'm still using. As soon as I think I was calling the dope man on the way home from jail. I walked and so I still didn't learn my lesson. And on the way home, on my way, I take the bus to the pizza shop. I meet this guy. And he knew me. I didn't remember him, but he knew me from jail. And he knew everything I had said in front of the magistrate, and he knew about my kids, and he knew all these things. And I know now that drug dealers, like if they go to jail, they'll scope you out, like certain ones, because you're in the medical outfit and the withdrawal, so they scope you out. So he offered to front me some heroin that night, and so after work he came over. The next day he came over with all his stuff and never left my house. So I didn't even know this kid. Luckily my kids aren't here, they're in foster care, and he just moves in. He's younger than me, and this was probably August. And so by July, I'm back in safe house because he's almost killed me. I'm pregnant at this time. The only reason I didn't die is because of God. So he's like beating me and like for hours because he makes crack, but you know, he would snort the cocaine. So he would be high for hours. And until he would come down from that high, he would beat me. And it's things I don't even want to talk about. Like he would rip my clothes off so I couldn't run to the neighbor's house. And it's okay. So one day God spoke through him and he was like, you know, I only beat you because you don't call the police. And for some reason I knew that was God. He could speak through anybody. And then this is where it gets, at some point I don't know when, he raised his hand to hit me in the stomach and I'm pregnant and he's going to buy more cocaine. And I know he's going to make crack and I know what's going to happen. So this is the second time I've left him to go to the safe house. The first time I went back. And it was just a short period of time. And I have to run down the road. It's probably only 2 miles behind buildings, hiding literally from him so he doesn't find me. Because now at this point he knows I'm gone because I called him and told him I'm leaving. I don't know why. So, and I make it there. The lady at Safe House is amazing. She's waiting down the driveway because I have to cross the big street and go down a dark street to get there. And at this point, I don't go back. So the next day, the same police officer that warned me the first time comes, who saw me walking back to the house the first time leaving the shelter, and questioned where I was doing. Like, he was there. So I pressed charges and I stayed there. And I'm pregnant at this time. And I'm tired. So I take a nap. And I say, okay, God, if you want me to go to this AA meeting that I found that I could walk to, then you'll wake me up in time for this meeting. Unfortunately, he woke me up. And I really didn't want to go, but I told him I would go, so I went. And so I sat at this table, and this lady was late, and then I saw another lady who used to get high with the same people that I used to get high with. She was a streetwalker, and she'd been out for decades. And she was at this meeting. So the lady who was late, she never comes to that meeting, and I didn't know this at first, but I had asked her to be my sponsor. Turns out she never goes to that meeting, but she was running late to another one, so she chose this one, and she was the sponsor for this other lady, and I knew she could help her get clean, she could help me get clean, and that's really where it started. So that was my adventure into recovery, because it took me 11 months in recovery before I finally got clean. It was a struggle, and as you can see, that was from drugs, not from guys. So I'm sober, I'm happy, I'm pregnant with Serenity. Life is great. I'm in recovery. I am just doing all the things I need to do. This guy's in jail. And I start hanging out with my neighbors, who are all fantastic people. I love them. We had fun. You know, they would drink. I would be sober. I'd be pregnant. It was fun. And then the new neighbor, and I don't know how it happened, made the first move, who had a girlfriend. So he is the father of my last child. And that is probably the testimony that I have not ever shared because it hurt so deep. So we used to sneak around, and then he broke up with his girlfriend, and they were gone for a week, or she was gone for a week, and then she tried to commit suicide, and then he went back. Without telling me though, I just saw him there. That was like devastating to my heart. And I have the best of friends because every day I cry about this stupid guy to my friends, and no one hates me still to this day. They listened and they just went with it, and it was amazing that I didn't lose a friend because of that. So, and just like before, I finally got over him, right? I was really over him. And one day I'm outside smoking a cigarette, and we live in a trailer park, everything's closed. And he walks up to me and kisses me. Maybe it's not that, maybe that wasn't the time. Or it might have been the time where I have a party at my house and he calls me. And I leave my daughter, who I was actually feeding, because she was a baby, with my friends, and I go meet with them. Either way, at some point those things happened, and that's how we got together again. And so I'm still into church, though. I'm at church like 4 days a week, and life is just happy. I'm happy. But he was like my best friend because we just partied all the time together, and I was sober. And, he was nice. He didn't do drugs. He wasn't abusive. And I really don't think he was with his girlfriend. I thought they were brother and sister at first. Reasons I justify things. And so we talked on the phone all day, every day. And he just helped me through things. So we would meet in my shed on the same day every week. And one day he had, because his girlfriend would go and have dinner with her parents, and he would never go. And then he said, she went an extra week. And he said, do you want to get together? And God said, don't go. So of course I went. And that was the night I got pregnant. And so God can turn any bad situation into good. He tried to stop me from all of the drama that I still go through to this day because of this relationship. But he gave me something beautiful out of it. And he's given me a lot of wisdom. So I don't know where I'm going with the story yet. But this was harder than drugs to get over. And I know I have this addiction to guys, but I don't think it's guys. I think it's I don't even know, because it's not love. It's not lust.
Daddy issues.
I guess. Yeah, so I didn't know until last year that I had this issue. When I was listening to my testimony, and I said, and I met this guy, and this last one isn't even on there, I was rolling my eyes at myself are you serious? You didn't see all this? And you don't. When you live in it, you don't see what you're doing. You just think it's normal. You go with that emotion and you just live life. But, so now I'm pregnant. And when you do things in darkness, God brings it to light. I was in church 4 days a week, and now everybody knows I was sneaking around with someone else's boyfriend. It's not a secret anymore. The only people that don't know is her. Everyone in the trailer park knows I'm pregnant. They don't know who the dad is. So I move because, again, God is working through all of this. And the drug dealer that I got pregnant with is in jail. I had to go to court for aggravated stalking because he kept trying to come back to the house. So he's in jail waiting trial, and I know he could be getting out anytime. So I knew I needed to move. And my boyfriend that passed away's mom, remember, she owns the trailer that I live in, and her husband has cancer now, and she wants to sell the trailer. And I'm not working. And so I don't know what to do. But she gives me 5 weeks. And in that 5 weeks, I find a place. And it was God, because it was the only place that actually would allow me to have all my kids, because I had a lot of kids at this time. 4, almost 5. And I had animals. And so a lot of people don't want to rent to that. But when I went there, and it was in the ghetto, and so no one at my church wanted me to move there. But when I went, I felt this peace of God that I could not explain. And I said, this is the house. And so I pulled up stats to assure everyone that we were going to be safe and that it's going to be okay. And so we moved there. And I got out of that trailer park mentality of sneaking around and being so close and everyone in your business, and I left. And I stopped sleeping with him, and I actually quit talking to him for a while, and then he came to the house. And that's when everyone slowly found out that I was pregnant with his kid. And so then he went to the hospital. Long story short, he went to the hospital with me. I still wasn't with him at this point. I was scared because what if he does that to me? And everyone had me scared. And then I had Rosalie. And within a few weeks, I decided I wanted to be with him. And he had already moved someone into his house. And we were still friends every day. So at this point, I was like, no, he's mine. And this thing came out of me like nothing else. And I fought for him with all my being. And I won because I don't have him. And so at first, I didn't understand, like, I would get into these prayer groups and I would say, please pray for this situation and this person. And I remember people would reach out to me, so how's it going? And I would be like, every time you guys pray, it gets worse. Just quit praying for him. Well, duh. It was actually God trying to open my eyes. So this was weeks, years, it was years, that I'm still like struggling with this. And he's still with this girl, and she's pregnant. And so they come to our church. I try to be nice. And it's just this jealousy in me. It's like no other. It's crazy. And the only way I ever broke those chains, I had to start fasting. And I fasted for weeks, a full fast for 3 days. And it was my first fast ever in my life. So I was scared, but I would do a full fast for 3 days. And then I would have one meal and go again. And I did this for weeks before it could break those chains. That I didn't have to need him. I didn't want him. And I wasn't like that anger and rage and I still had some of that, but the lust. Those break those chains where I had no other relationship, ungodly relationship with him. And I had to fast, and it was hard because that stronghold was harder than drugs. And I tell people I is harder than drugs. I went through hell through this. Sleepless nights, not eating. I couldn't get it together. And the sad thing is we were friends. We were friends through all of this. We read the Bible together. We prayed together. We did all these things. So I'm trying to justify it. But when it is not meant to be, it doesn't matter what you do. It just won't work. So fasting did it. And my aunt called me. I hadn't been to Florida in over 10 years. That was when my dad died. And she wanted to send for me to come on vacation down here. And so we came to vacation. It was in January. Rosalie was probably a year and a half, I think. I'm not sure. And we come down. This is the first time I've ever met my family where I'm clean, sober, and saved. And I actually loved them. And I knew I wanted to come down. So I came home, we prayed, and I made a plan to go the following year. This is in January. And I moved to Florida 4 years ago in May. It wasn't a year. It was just a few months. Because when God tells you to do something, you go. Because I've learned if I'm out of God's will, it is the worst place to ever be. It is unsafe. So not being God's, I couldn't wait because things were getting ugly with Rosalie's dad. Like he was coming when it wasn't his day, and then we were fighting over her, and he tried to get me in jail saying I could place my hands on him, and the police officer said, if you don't have bruises, shut up. And I just knew I couldn't keep doing these things. It was like one thing after another, and I couldn't. I had to get out, and God said go. So within months, by the grace of God, my friend gave me a van, and we made it to Tennessee. And it broke down. So we actually made it to Georgia, and my friend who drove us to make sure we were safe forgot his wallet at the hotel that we stayed at, and we were heading back to go get it. When he wouldn't let me listen, and this was actually just a friend, but still, wouldn't let me listen to my worship music in the car, which we had several CDs on, and he flicked somebody off right before the engine blew up, and we were on the side of the road. So my cousin, who is my prayer warrior cousin, who I was never close to as a kid, but I am the closest, so close to her now. We can pray together. We call each other when we need prayers, which is just a message away. She came and got us from Tennessee, dropped us off at a hotel where I used my last credit card with just enough money on it to rent a car to make it to Florida, where I had to live with my mom for 6 weeks. Because on the way down, because I was leaving early, the rental fell through. And, well, she didn't kill me. And I finally found a place that allowed all my kids and all my animals. And I'm here. And I'm still sober after all of that. And I have no more guy stories after that. That's my last guy story. And I'm so excited about that. I do. I'm not, that's my last guy one. So I do have more stories. But I'm in the process here. So I can't find a job because I have a lot of kids. I have 5 kids, 4 here. And you can't really afford a minimum wage job and daycare and get off early to get your kids from school. And I'm a single mom, and I don't like to depend on other people for things and rides. Plus, no one else has time. They all have their lives. So I can't find a job. I got a job as a medical assistant, and I got hired as a substitute teacher. But because of my background in Michigan, I could never get the paperwork and get those released to be able to get that job. And so I finally found a job, seasonal job, short time that I could work from home. It was only seasonal, and then I didn't have anything after that. And my wonderful aunt who paid for me to come on vacation here and didn't know she would be stuck with me forever because I moved after that vacation. It really opened my eyes. She suggested I get into real estate. And so I looked into it, and I'd always thought of it. I saw how it changed her life, and I saw what it did for her, and I always just looked up to her for that. So I took a class, and I had an amazing instructor, and I actually got 100 on my end of course exam, which I brag about because it was probably the only 100 I ever got in my life, so I was so excited about that. And then my background was the issue, and it took me 6 months to fight. So I fought. I kept giving paperwork. I'd called the courts. Remember, I was so high, I don't even remember who arrested me, so I didn't even know what court I had been to, where my records were, or who to even find. So this took a very long time before I could find all the records I needed to be able to submit them before I could be approved to be a realtor. And so I finally did that, and then they needed to meet with me, the people, the board of real estate, and I needed to prove my character. And so I had people write letters because I have amazing friends. Through the whole process, God has given me the best of friends. He chooses the right people in your life. If you let Him, He'll give you the best friends, the best role models, the best just always. I always have to remember to trust Him and just ask. And every day I ask for godly meetings to meet people. So I have my pastor at the time and another lady, Miss Tina, go with me to this FREC, which is Florida Real Estate Association stuff, and we go to Orlando, and it's my turn to be called, and then they have to speak on me. And so Miss Tina steps up. She's shorter than me, and we got the board of a whole bunch of people. And would you know that one of the guys knew her from some home ec thing that they went to in some other state way up north, and so he knew and could trust her character reference of me, and they approved me. So here I am now, realtor, clean, sober, no guys in my life, and breaking chains every day. I'm letting God break chains in me every day between anger, frustration. The only people that can get me angry are my kids. They'll probably be the only ones that hear me cuss because I don't get angry enough to cuss these days, except for them, which isn't great, but it's just being honest. So I don't know how long I took, but that's my story. Oh, 35 minutes, sorry guys.